Welcome back, everybody, for deep dive number 4.
Four already.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
I guess so, huh?
So last time we were talking all about production processes, procurement, and that big concept of quality.
Right, right.
Well, today, get ready, because we were diving into how businesses actually measure quality.
The proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Exactly. It's about keeping those customers happy, maybe even exceeding their expectations. We'll be talking mystery shoppers, the Kaizen philosophy. Things are going to get interesting.
You know, it's like taking those quality promises and actually turning them into concrete actions.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not just about saying we're the best, it's about proving it.
Yeah.
Consistently. And in ways that really matter to the people using those products and services.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. How do companies even define quality? You know, when it can mean so many different things depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, is quality for a handcrafted guitar the same as quality for a mass-produced coffee maker?
That's a great point. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all definition. But there are these kind of 5 dimensions of quality that businesses generally consider. First up, you've got performance.
Okay, performance.
Does it actually work the way it's supposed to? Pretty basic, right? Then there's durability. How long will it last before it falls apart?
Right, you don't want something that breaks after a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you've got consistency. Think about buying a bag of chips. You expect every chip to be pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, you don't want one super salty chip and then one that's, like, basically plain.
Exactly. And then there's the aesthetics, how it looks, feels, even smells.
Ah, the sensory experience.
Right, and that's super important for some products more than others. And then lastly, what really ties it all together, customer feedback.
Ah, the voice of the people.
It's the direct insights from the people actually using the product or service.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like companies are realizing they can't just guess what people want anymore. They have to listen and adapt. So beyond just reading those online reviews, how do they actively measure this quality thing?
Well, there are a few methods out there. One is specifications testing, which is your classic, weigh and measure approach.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned way.
So imagine a chocolate bar manufacturer. They're going to meticulously weigh each bar to make sure the size is consistent. Or a clothing company testing the strength of seams to make sure their clothes don't fall apart after a few wears.
Ah, so there's still a place for good old-fashioned rulers in the age of customer reviews.
Absolutely. But of course, not everything can be measured with a ruler. That's where things like customer feedback surveys and mystery shoppers come in.
Wait, hold on, mystery shoppers. That sounds like something out of a spy movie.
Oh, right. They're like the undercover agents of quality control.
I love it. Tell me more.
So they basically act like regular customers, but they're evaluating the service, seeing if employees are following procedures, if the store is clean and organized, things you might not pick up on through a survey alone.
Oh, so it's about getting that real-world feel.
Yeah. They provide a real-world snapshot of the customer experience.
That's super interesting. But let's say a company has figured out how to measure its quality. What happens next? Do they just, like, fix problems as they pop up?
Well, some companies might take that more reactive approach.
Putting out fires.
Yeah, but the most successful ones actually think about quality as a whole philosophy, a way of doing business.
Okay, I like that. A way of doing business.
And that's where ideas like total quality management or TQM and Kaizen come in.
All right, now we're getting to the big leagues.
A bit more strategic.
These sound less like checklists and more like company-wide strategies.
Exactly. TQM is all about building quality into every single stage of the process, from the initial design of a product all the way to customer service interactions after a sale.
So it's not just about catching defects at the end. It's about preventing them in the first place.
You got it. One of the core principles of TQM is customer focus. This means recognizing that a company's success really hinges on satisfying its customers.
Which makes sense. Happy customers, happy business.
Right, so every decision, from product design to customer service, should prioritize meeting their needs and exceeding expectations.
Okay, so how does a company actually implement customer focus? Is it just about asking people what they want?
Well, it's much more than just asking. It's about truly understanding your customers, their needs, and their expectations. It's about analyzing data from customer feedback, tracking industry trends, and even anticipating future needs.
So it's like being proactive rather than just reacting to complaints.
Precisely. TQM is about constantly looking for ways to improve based on what your customers are telling you, both directly and indirectly.
Now, I remember you mentioned another big idea, this Kaizen thing.
Kaizen. It's a Japanese term meaning continuous improvement, and it takes a slightly different approach to quality. It focuses on making small incremental changes to processes over time.
So instead of overhauling the entire system, you're constantly tweaking and refining things bit by bit.
Exactly. A core principle of Kaizen is employee empowerment. This means giving employees at all levels the authority and responsibility to identify areas for improvement and implement solutions, no matter how small.
Interesting. So it's not just about management dictating changes from the top down.
Right. It's about tapping into the collective wisdom of the entire workforce.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does this employee empowerment actually play out in a company using Kaizen?
Okay, so imagine a team working on an assembly line. They might notice a small inefficiency in how a particular part is handled. In a traditional setting, they might just shrug it off and continue working.
Right. Just keep going.
But with Kaizen, they're encouraged to analyze the issue, come up with a solution, and test it out.
I see. Take ownership.
Exactly. Even a small tweak that saves a few seconds per part can add up to significant time and cost savings over the long run.
So it's about creating a culture where everyone is constantly looking for ways to do things better, no matter their position in the company.
You got it. And this focus on employee-driven improvement often leads to more creative and effective solutions, because the people closest to the process are the ones identifying the problems and coming up with solutions.
Okay, so we've got these two powerful philosophies, TQM and Kaizen, both aiming for quality, but with different approaches.
Oh.
But before we get lost in the theory, let's remind ourselves why this matters in the real world.
Okay.
What are the consequences for businesses that just ignore quality altogether?
Well, ignoring quality is a risky gamble in today's world. One major consequence is a loss of reputation. Disappointed customers can quickly spread the word, whether through online reviews or simply telling their friends.
Ouch, yeah. Word of mouth can make or break a company, especially these days with social media. Nobody wants to be known as the brand with shoddy products or terrible service.
Exactly. And then there's the financial hit. Refunds, replacements, and in the worst-case scenario, product recalls. Not only are these costly, but they also represent a huge waste of resources and can seriously damage customer trust.
Product recalls are definitely the nightmare scenario. It's not just the financial hit. It's the public relations disaster that can take years to recover from.
Exactly. And in some cases, poor quality can even lead to legal issues and compensation claims if a product causes harm or fails to meet safety standards.
Yeah, the stakes are incredibly high.
The stakes are high.
Okay, so ignoring quality is playing with fire. To really drive this home, can you give me a real-world example of a company that's doing it right?
Have you heard of Artisan Chocolate Co?
I don't think so.
They're known for their super high-quality, ethically sourced chocolate, and they decided to embrace both TQM and Kaizen to maintain their standards.
So they're not choosing one philosophy over the other. They're going for a hybrid approach.
Exactly. They implemented rigorous quality checks at every stage, from the moment the raw cocoa beans arrive to the final packaging of each bar. But they also empowered their employees to constantly look for ways to improve the process.
I see. So it's like a two-pronged attack. Strong top-down systems and a culture of continuous improvement from the bottom up.
Right. For example, they had a team dedicated to reducing waste during the chocolate molding process.
Interesting. Did this dual approach actually work for them?
Well, it seems to have been a recipe for success. Customer satisfaction skyrocketed, and they significantly reduced waste, which saved them money and reduced their environmental impact.
Wow, so win-win.
Yeah, it's a great example of how these principles can translate into tangible results.
That's impressive. It really highlights how these seemingly abstract ideas about quality management can have a huge impact on a company's bottom line and its relationship with customers.
Absolutely. And it leads us back to the differences between TQM and Kaizen. Remember that table we looked at earlier outlining the key distinctions between these approaches? I think it's worth revisiting those key differences now that we have a real-world example in mind.
Yes, let's dive back into that. I'm especially curious about how employee roles differ between the two approaches.
Okay, let's break down this table a bit further.
Sounds good.
So one of the key distinctions that this table highlights is that scale of change row. TQM, as we discussed, is about large-scale systematic change across the whole organization. Think of it as like a complete overhaul of a company's approach to quality.
Okay.
But Kaizen, on the other hand, favors those smaller incremental tweaks that we were talking about.
So it's like TQM is like renovating your whole house at once to try to make it perfect.
Yeah.
While Kaizen is more like making those little upgrades over time, like repainting a room here, updating a fixture there.
Yeah,
Both can make your house nicer, but the approach is definitely different.
that's a great way to put it. And this difference in scale is also reflected in the employee row as well.
Oh, okay.
So in TQM, everyone's responsible for quality, but there's often a strong emphasis on like top-down leadership and management driving those big changes. It's a bit more hierarchical.
So with TQM, management kind of sets the standards and then employees are expected to follow them to a T.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
There's a strong emphasis on following procedures and setting those top-down quality goals.
I got it.
But Kaizen kind of flips the script a bit. It still has management setting the overall direction, but it really empowers employees at all levels to identify those areas for improvement and even implement solutions themselves.
So it's more collaborative.
It's much more collaborative and bottom-up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're constantly making those small improvements, you need everyone's eyes and ears open to spot those opportunities.
Exactly.
It's less about following a rigid set of rules and more about fostering a culture where everybody is thinking about how to do things better.
Exactly. Now, while both philosophies aim to improve quality, their objectives are framed a bit differently.
Oh, okay,
So
interesting.
TQM is very customer-centric, laser-focused on meeting or even exceeding those customer expectations.
So with TQM, it's all about making sure the final product or service consistently delivers on its promises to the customer.
Yes, exactly. Kaizen, on the other hand, takes a slightly broader view. While customer satisfaction is still a key concern, Kaizen also emphasizes reducing waste and improving efficiency across the board.
That's interesting. It's like they believe that by streamlining the process and eliminating waste, you're inherently improving the quality of what you're producing, even if the customer never sees those behind-the-scenes improvements.
Exactly. And that brings us to the implementation row of this table. TQM is highly structured and data-driven, often involving statistical analysis, process mapping, and all sorts of tools to identify those areas for improvement.
So they're crunching the numbers to find those quality weak points.
Yes. It's very systematic, very analytical. Kaizen, though, is much more organic and culture-based.
Yeah.
It's about creating an environment where everyone is constantly looking for ways to do things better and is empowered to make those changes happen.
I see.
They rely heavily on tools like Gemba walks, where you go to the actual place of work to observe the process firsthand.
Oh, so it's like instead of just looking at data on a spreadsheet, you're getting your hands dirty and seeing how things actually work in practice.
Precisely. Another popular Kaizen tool is the 5 whys technique.
The 5 whys. Okay.
So when a problem arises, you ask why repeatedly, ideally 5 times, to get to the root cause.
Okay.
It's about understanding not just what went wrong, but why it went wrong, so you can prevent it from happening again.
So to summarize, TQM is about analyzing the numbers, while Kaizen is more about getting out there, observing, asking questions, and constantly experimenting.
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it. Both approaches definitely have their strengths. TQM can be great for driving those big system-wide changes, but it can also be a bit rigid and resistant to those smaller, more nuanced improvements.
Okay.
Kaizen is fantastic for fostering a culture of continuous improvement, but it might take longer to see those major results, especially in a large organization.
So it's like anything else. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about choosing the right tool for the job.
And some companies might even find that a hybrid approach, combining elements of both TQM and Kaizen, actually works best for them.
Right.
Artisan Chocolate Co., as we discussed, seem to have a lot of success with this blended approach.
It's fascinating to see how these ideas play out in the real world. But before we wrap up, I think it's important to step back and consider the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Why should businesses even care about this stuff in the long run? I mean, beyond just avoiding those bad reviews and product recalls, why does it matter?
That's an important question. In today's world, with so much competition and informed customers who can easily compare products and services, quality has become a necessity, not just a nice-to-have.
You're right. Customers have more choices than ever, and they're not afraid to switch brands if they're not happy. And with online reviews and social media, word of mouth can spread like wildfire.
Exactly. And it's not just about staying afloat, it's about thriving. Companies that make quality a core part of their DNA are the ones that build those loyal customer bases, attract top talent, and ultimately become leaders in their industries.
So it's not just about avoiding the negative consequences. It's about creating this positive cycle where quality breeds success.
Precisely. And this goes beyond simply reacting to problems as they pop up.
Right.
It's about adopting a proactive approach, whether through TQM, Kaizen, or a hybrid model, to create a culture where quality is deeply ingrained in everything the company does.
So it's about going from a mindset of like fixing things when they break to a mindset of constantly striving to make things better.
You got it. And that means understanding that quality is not just the responsibility of a few people in a quality control department. It's everyone's job, from the CEO to the newest employee. Everyone has a role to play in ensuring the company is consistently delivering on its promises.
I love that. It's about creating a culture of shared responsibility and ownership
Yeah,
when it comes to quality.
absolutely. And that, I think, is the most important takeaway from our deep dive today.
I agree. Quality is not just a buzzword. It's a foundation of a successful and sustainable business in today's world.
I agree.
But now I'm curious, how can individuals apply these same principles to their own lives, even if they're not, running a company?
That's a great question and a perfect transition to wrap up our deep dive. We often associate quality management with businesses and organizations.
Yeah, for sure.
But these principles can actually be really powerful tools for personal growth as well.
That's a really cool way to look at it. It's like setting high standards for ourselves.
Right.
Continually looking for ways to improve and taking responsibility for our actions and their outcomes.
It is. And it's also about recognizing that pursuing quality is not about reaching some final destination.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's an ongoing journey.
I love that. It's about always striving to be better, to do better, and to create better outcomes in all parts of our lives.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a challenge. I encourage you to reflect on your own lives and work.
Yes, a little homework.
Ask yourself, where can I apply these quality management principles? What can I improve? What small changes can I make today that will have a positive impact on my tomorrow?
Love it. Small changes, big impact.
Remember that even small improvements, when made consistently over time, can lead to significant results.
And never underestimate the power of continuous learning and improvement.
Well said.
A huge thank you to Google Notebook LM for the powerful AI assistance in crafting this insightful audio dialogue.
It's been a pleasure diving deep into these fascinating concepts with you.
This has been a PEELC Strategy Production. Until next time, keep striving for quality in all that you do.